SportsEpreneur.
Hello, Athlete Mindset community. This is Lisa Bontasumi, the host of Athlete Mindset. Before we dive into this episode, I want to invite you to support the mission and purpose of our show. For $10 a month, you can help to make sure these conversations get to as many athletes, teams, coaches, and sport mental health environments as possible. As a subscriber, you will receive exclusive content and updates on current topics in athlete mental health, and you'll be directly contributing to the betterment of mental health for all athletes. Join the cause. Subscribe at sportse.io/athlete and make a difference today. Again, that's sportse.io/athlete. With your support and amplification, we can ensure more voices are heard and more individuals and communities are positively impacted. What's up, Athlete Mindset community? Super excited to have a special, they're all special, but this one is special in a different way, guest, Miss Julie Shiller. The reason why she's extra special is that she is one of my top AthMindset practitioners, and part of that affiliation and connection, we get to sit here and chop it up. So I'm super excited. She has so much experience in so many aspects of the holistic athlete experience. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She's going to say what's up to everybody, and we're going to dive right in. So as a youth athlete, Julie Shiller left sport without the support she needed to navigate challenges with body confidence and mental health, a gap that now drives her work as a sport and performance therapist with the Line Bay Area Sports Psychology and with AthMindset as a mental performance practitioner. She also is a trainer for Positive Coaching Alliance and the founder of her own company, The Other 23 Hours Coaching. She has over 15 years in coaching and human performance. Julie helps athletes and coaches thrive as whole people, guiding growth physically, mentally, and emotionally. What? Who is this young lady? Like, what's going on? I'm like super excited. Julie, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. That was quite the intro. I sound cooler on paper, I think. So thank you for that.
You're sick, Julie. Julie, you're sick.
No, you're sick, Lisa.
That's an inside joke that we just let you all in on. But no, Julie, you are awesome. People need to get to know you, need to get to know your vibe, how you think, how you move, the way you just talk about the work, be in the work. So let's start with our first question. We started a little bit in the intro as a youth athlete. Let's start with your story a little bit more and dive in there. Like, what drew you into the space of working with athletes and specifically the mental performance side? Because you've been doing other stuff on the human performance side as an athlete. But was there a moment or experience that really shaped your path in the mental performance realm?
Yeah. That's such a good question. And it's really twofold here. It started as a youth athlete, like you talked about in my bio. And then it came full circle as an adult, really later on, and it inspired a career pivot. So like you mentioned, as a youth athlete, sports meant the most to me. Soccer, basketball, martial arts, that was my world as an athlete who did the thing, who did the sport. Yeah. But also, some of my best memories with my dad is watching the Knicks, in the 90s, the rivalries between the Knicks and the Bulls, and watching professional wrestling. Sports are they mean so much to me. So much. That's why it was completely heartbreaking to leave sport before I was ready. So right around middle school, the stats support this, right? Even the current stats.
Yes.
That girls in particular quit sport in middle school, right around age 13, 14, due to low body confidence. And that really was my experience. At the time, nobody was talking about mental performance, mental skills. That wasn't a conversation. It was, suck it up and do it. And so I didn't really have the language to kind of make sense of my experience. And so I left sport. I didn't feel like I was, the best anymore. I wasn't okay with making mistakes. all these mental skills that we talk about. And so I struggled for a long time. Middle school, high school, I had an eating disorder, really struggled with confidence, self-esteem, all the things. And, that really shaped the work that I ended up doing for many, many years. I found my way back to sport in kind of an untraditional way. I became a personal trainer and a strength
Mm-hmm.
and conditioning coach and did that for a really long time and was always particularly intrigued by the mental side of training, of being physical with our bodies. And as a social worker, that intersection really informed the way that I wrote programs, the way that I interacted with my clients. And after about 10 years, I was reflecting on, okay, does this still feel good for me? And do I want a new challenge? And on the personal side, I had experienced a couple major personal losses and was really searching for a new sense, a new source of joy, a new source of community, and was really feeling like right around the pandemic, like so many of us, like a little bit lonely. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I found that joy in that community again through women's sports as a fan. As a
Yes, as a fan, women's sports.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
and like so many of us, right? And it's like, get on board, right?
yes.
Everybody watches women's sports, but I hadn't felt that sense of joy and community since I was a kid playing soccer and basketball, participating in martial arts, all those things. It's like, I need to be a part of this. I don't know how or, what steps I can take to do it, but I just knew I had to be a part of it. And my sister calls me up right around the time of the Women's World Cup in New Zealand, and she said,
Yes.
"Hey, you wanna go to the Women's World Cup? My friend is going. She has a good friend in New Zealand, and, I can get you tickets. Do you wanna go?" And she knew at the time I had been going through kind of some stuff and needed some joy and community, so she's like, "Let's go to Auckland's. Like, let's go see the Women's World Cup." So that's what we did,
That's
and
amazing.
I was on the fields, well, close to the pitch, and just the energy. I just said to myself, I need to figure out a way to be a part of this world, whether it's as a strength and conditioning coach or figuring out some other way. And that's what led me down the path of mental performance, getting my license 10 years, 15 years after I actually got my master's degree so that I could be a therapist for athletes. It was a full circle experience for me, like coming from that athlete who quit way too soon and then figuring out that this is the work that I'm supposed to be doing. And it's never felt so aligned.
I love it. Thank you. You've touched on so many amazing things. I love, first of all, how open, authentic, and vulnerable you are as a practitioner, as a provider. People need to know that we're humans and we have our own experiences that define and shape who we are along our own lifespan, and that sort of influences us and how we help others and how we give back and give back to the communities that mean a lot to us. So thank you for opening up. Really appreciate
Absolutely.
that. People need to hear it, so thank you for that. There's so much that you've talked about. I love the fact that you are duly trained. I am as well, and there's a special sweet spot that we sit in there, you being on your road to earning your license as a licensed clinical social worker and what that means. I just did a whole talk. Actually, I was interviewed for an article and then did a talk somewhere else about the role of social workers in sports, and that being a licensed clinical social worker is one way, and that's the space that we both sit in, but there's so many other places. We can create policy, we can advocate, we can do research, we can, because I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think the story when we were younger was, "Oh, if you're a social worker, you're gonna take my baby away from me."
100%.
Yep,
Yeah, that was the narrative. And,
that's the narrative.
and I imagine when you got your master's, it certainly was the case when I got mine. There was no field called sports social work. That
No,
was
absolutely not.
not a thing. If I knew about it, maybe I would have entered this space a little sooner. So
Yes.
Yeah.
We're so happy that there are the major player in that is the Alliance for Social Workers in Sport, which we both belong to and love. And then you are an exam away from earning your CMP, the Certified Mental Performance Consultant designation through the Association for Applied Sports Psychology. So there's just a real holistic way that you and I both value being able to intersect with those two fields and how we support the athletes and the parents and the coaches and everyone in the sport ecosystem. So super dope for you to like bring some amplification to that. Eating disorders, again, very vulnerable of you to share. I'm going to put some more information in the show notes about what those are, how we can prevent, how we can treat. Just so many nuggets there. Appreciate you just for bringing such light to it and that like all of those experiences brought you to this moment. So I can only imagine too, along the way, there was processing different versions of yourself, different identities. You know, on this podcast, we talk a lot about different kinds of identities. You know, for athletes, so much of who they are is tied to their sport. You and I can both relate to that. You know, how do you see athletes navigating those transitions? Similar to kind of what you went through, like injury, potentially leaving the sport before you are intended because of some experience or even role changes within your team. And, you know, what's been meaningful in your work around helping athletes navigate those different transitions and different sort of ways that they identify themselves as it relates to their sport?
Yeah, I love this question because identity work is so exciting for me and I believe truly important and at the very foundation of the work that we do. I'm working a lot with D1 athletes right now at the collegiate setting. I'm also working with middle school and high school athletes who are very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Some who aren't competitive and who are debating whether or not they want to stay in sport because of poor coaching experiences and culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so this identity work is so important, whether they're going through an injury, return to play, thinking about leaving sport, different life situations where they might have to take a pause and take a break from their sport. And so really supports like what the research tells us in that if we develop our athletes as whole humans before they need it, they're not going to experience the levels of anxiety and depression that athletes experience if they place so much emphasis on their identity as an athlete.
So wait a minute. Are you saying that an identity crisis in sports for an athlete can be prevented?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I know we're on the same page here. Prevention work is at the core. And that's a huge reason why I believe that, if we shift to prevention work, we can really shift and change some of these systems that are not set up to help athletes thrive during sport, post sport. But prevention is not what we do overall in this society.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
wait for things to hurt.
Exactly. We respond to a crisis or a bad moment or injury mentally or physically. What would be a skill or an approach, a strategy from the prevention side that you would recommend for maybe, let's say, one of your collegiate athletes you're working with? You know, in your experience, or if it has come up, what would you recommend? If it hasn't, what would you imagine could be really helpful for an athlete to hear?
Yeah, I think the permission to be a person outside being an athlete is number one,
Mm.
especially at the D1 level, and really like pouring into who are their support, who comprises their support system outside, maybe their teammates and coaches who are huge. They're a huge part of it. But what about their friends who don't play sports? What about their friends
That's
and
right.
family? All of it. That's a huge part of it. And then I think really starting to develop some hobbies. And if they've never thought about what a potential hobby could be outside sport, like, let's go. Now's the opportunity. Let's think about it.
That's right.
What do you like? And maybe sometimes just having the space to explore and think about it is really
So,
freeing.
Julie, yes,
Yeah.
I agree. And let me give you real life scenarios thematically. I
Yeah.
have gotten pushback from collegiate and professional athletes about, oh, if I start to explore other areas of who I am and other areas of interest or other passions I might have, my coach is going to think I'm not as serious about my sport. My coach is going to think that I'm laxing off or I'm unfocused or not committed. Because that's real. That's real. That's come up in
100%.
my applied
Yeah.
practice. You probably heard it too. What would be one, just an approach you would take if that was sort of an area of like, that an athlete might come to you with?
Yeah, I think twofold here. One is making it fit realistically into what they're already doing in their schedule. Like, so it's not going to take away from their sport at all. It's actually going to be a productive way to take a rest. And by rest, I mean productive rest. It's going to improve
Mm-hmm.
performance, right? When we and we need different kinds of rest. I was just talking to an athlete about this yesterday about mental rest, physical rest, emotional rest, social rest, all of it, and kind of talking about the differences. And yeah, I truly believe that rest can be productive for performance, both as a human and as an athlete. And then if the coach genuinely feels like they're distracted, you know, I'd have them look at their actual performance. Like,
Yeah.
are they distracted? Like,
Right.
yeah,
And
and
their
like,
contribution to the team dynamic and their
yeah,
leadership and like other ways that they contribute to the culture, right?
what do those stats look like, right?
Yeah. Right.
And if you're genuinely telling me that their performance has decreased, they're a poorer leader, they're not as productive on the team, I would be shocked.
I would be too. I would be too. But in your question of like, what, like, how do we measure that? There's no stats for a good leader. There's no measurement for, I mean, traditionally, in the
Yeah,
way that you add to a positive culture on your team. It's so interesting. I mean, I think part of our work in the sports psychology realm, and you and I both agree on this, is like, how do we put value to that? How do we maybe quantitatively measure? How do we qualitatively measure? Like that kind of data is so important to support the things that have been historically unmeasurable, to put some structure to it, some understanding, to universal understanding to it. I am referring to a podcast I did years ago now with two collegiate soccer players. One was my niece, Raina Bonta, who actually you and I were connected before we even did AthMindset because we had connection at the New Zealand World Cup. You know, Philippines was there, my niece was there, like, let's go.
yes.
You know what I'm saying? So like that, it only makes sense. But anyway, I digress. But she with a teammate when they were playing collegiate soccer, D1, were talking about how their other interests and other areas of expressing who they are actually helped them. And this is no news to us, but I think it's important to say, helped them be better for the team, helped them bring up a different kind of energy, a different kind of perspective, because they're learning and growing as human beings from those other expressions of themselves and bringing it
Yeah.
back to the team and back to the dynamic and back to conversations and back to listening and back to all of that and back to like being beasts on the field. So it's like it all connects. Yeah. So, I mean, what you're saying, what we both know comes from the athletes' mouths too, when they're able to actually given a chance to explore that and to comment on it.
Yeah, and to become more well-rounded humans, it makes them better athletes, better people, right? And related to that is feeling joy and how important that is to performance and team dynamics. Like thinking of a really recent example of Steph Curry in the news that I read about.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen his performance.
Mm-mm. Tell me.
Uh, Okay, so he's 37, which in like the NBA and
Yes.
pro sports world, that's
Yeah.
like an old man, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
But he scored, I think it was 40 something points against the Spurs the other
Unbelievable.
night.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And the broadcaster asks him, like, okay, Steph, why are you performing so well? What's the secret? What's going on? And he said, I'm having fun. I'm playing with joy. And you see him smiling on the court. And, that sounds simple. But when we're talking about sustainability in sport, if you're not having fun, you're not going to be able to do it for a long time. And the reason why he's been doing it for so long is because he is having a good time. And that's not to say it's linear, right? I'm sure there were years where he was not having a good time, but he
Mhm.
was able to find that joy again. And I can bet it's because he's had hobbies outside sport. He is really close with his family. Like he is a
Yes.
whole person outside sport. So, uh,
Yes. and he's doing good in the community. He's contributing, him and his wife. I think another example of that in the professional sports is Carlos Alcaraz, pro tennis player out of Spain. So I, like you, am a fan. I'll watch any sport, anytime, anywhere. I'll watch it from a psychological perspective because it's so fascinating. Why do they make the decisions that they do? Why did they go here versus there, etc.? But I've just been so interested in him as a young man, 22, 23 still. And he talks about the joy. He talks about playing golf at tournaments in between his matches and having fun and joy. And I think the other thing I get pushback about is, well, if I'm having fun and I'm having joy in my when I play, I can't be as competitive as I want to be because they can't exist together. It's kind of like the message I get. I can't have fun and be in my joyful zone or space and still compete at the highest level because I got to access like the beast in me or like this or that. Like, what would you say to someone who might say that? Like, I don't know, Julie, like, joy, fun, really? Like, is that really a thing? And can I really almost allow myself to access that and still play at my highest level?
One of my favorite things to do is to unpack myths and to push back when people are like, can we really do this? Absolutely. So the first thing I would challenge them is to explore and possibly expand their definition of intensity and competitiveness. Why does it have to look a certain way?
Mhm.
For so many years in collegiate and pro sports, we've seen images in the media of these athletes who are not having a good time, at least visibly on their face and with their body language. They, look at Michael Jordan, other than like when his tongue was out and, having a good time. But like, I think, it was like super tough, unkind to your teammates, like all this stuff was portrayed in the media. And I think that's a myth. I don't think that it needs to look that way. But it's not about me trying to convince someone that like my way is the right way. I would want them to experience that. It's like, try it out, see what happens.
For sure, for sure. And then let's come back and talk about it. I think from the neuroscientific standpoint too, we know that if an athlete actually just makes a smile or like, I don't want to say forces, but insists on smiling even if you're not feeling happy just yet, all kinds of neurochemistry floods into your brain,
Yep.
loosens you up, relaxes you, makes your body more available to you. There's so many awesome things. Cortisol starts to decrease. That's the stress hormone. There's so many things. You don't even have to feel happy. Again, just the act of that
Yeah. Yep.
facial expression does that. And so remembering
Yeah.
that in our field brings that in and making sure that people hear that and know that. And we back it with citing the research that shows that is like so important.
Well, and I love that you talked about the neuroscience because sometimes, backing it up with the actual research is helpful for some athletes.
That's
Some
right.
athletes are like, I don't care,
Yeah.
research, whatever. So in
Yeah.
that case, meet them where they're at and say, okay, here are actual examples of athletes who are smiling and look at
Yeah.
their performance. Like, for example, Kelsey Plum, every time she takes
Yes.
a free throw, she smiles. Sometimes she even laughs. Like,
Yeah.
visibly.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
she
And like,
does. Exactly.
look at her percentage at the line, So, you know,
Totally.
I think it's also about meeting athletes where they're at. That's, really social work 101.
For sure.
If they're science people, if they're research people, give them that. If they're more into, seeing athletes that they can relate to, give them that and go from there. If they're more reflective, let's have them experience it and then come back and talk about it. So,
That's right. I find
yeah.
that it's helpful with my youth athletes' parents. They like that stuff. Some of them, meeting them where they're at too, knowing what makes sense, knowing what like lands with them. So they
Yeah, yeah.
feel entrusted in us and like feel like they can put their child in our hands, which is like a privilege I don't take for granted. Cause as a parent, I'm like, ooh, like, so I think that's really, really important for some folks. How about if we switch to, for the athletes, coaches, or parents who are tuning in, because I know y'all are here, what's one or two practical things they can start doing today to support their own mental well-being or the well-being of the athletes in their lives? Like, what would be one or two practical things for any one or all of those groups? Anything you'd want to comment on that for those folks listening in right now?
So you want me to comment on what they can do for themselves or for their athletes or
No, it's
both?
great. I mean, anything for athletes for themselves, coaches for their athletes, and parents for their kids who compete or play sport.
It really starts with you as the parent, as the coach, at the very foundation. So, what are you modeling? Because they're watching, whether or not you think they are, whether or not they're in a stage of their life where they think you're cool. They're watching, right? They're watching your habits and what's important to you. How do you communicate? How do you take care of your mental health? How do you take care of your physical health? Set a positive example. And if you're not sure where to start, asking for help is pretty much the coolest thing you can do, right? Because
Mhm.
there's all kinds of experts out there who are ready to support you. So that's number one. Number two is something we touched on before is how can you help your athletes develop their identity outside being an athlete?
Yeah,
I would say like that is something you really can do. And as a youth athlete, like the research really supports not specializing too early on. So maybe that's getting them involved in another sport or another hobby. And then that actually in turn improves performance in the sport that they're really serious about. So,
that's right. That's right.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. I will add to that for us, and let me see what you think about this, Julie. Like for athletes too, like knowing their passion and their why, like being able to speak to it on a deeper level as to why they do the things they do to show up to their sport. Because a lot of that ain't fun.
No,
To be
not,
honest,
not
it's
fun
like
at all. Yeah.
what they have to do to prepare to be in the competitive environment, whatever that is for them in their sport. Really realizing and making sure that they can speak to or express or start to at least what is their deepest passion about it? Like, "Oh, I play for my family," or "I play for the little kid in me. I play for those who can't. I play for" like, starting to see that it's bigger than them and that who you are and how you carry yourself is seen, and you also, even though you might not be a professional athlete, if you're a high school athlete, there are 8, 9-year-olds looking at you. Your younger siblings, your teammates' younger siblings, etcetera. So someone is always there because you have a platform, as big or as small that it is. So I think that's really important for coaches. Like, I know that you work with coaches at the collegiate level through Positive Coaching Alliance too, like really being able to check yourself at the door almost, like kinda see where your
Yeah.
strengths are and also where your shortcomings are, and have the humility to say, like, for the best of the team and the culture, I'm gonna take a look at this aspect of me as a human and this aspect of me as in my coaching philosophy and my style, and see how I could tweak that or improve it and then do it in a safe space, like with a CMPC or a clinician about, like, how do I don't know, I'm tentative, I'm weird, I've always done this way, but I'm being kind of told verbally and non-verbally that that's not probably working anymore, and, like, seeking that, I think that we are always students of the game in whatever way, yeah. It seems like you agree, that's awesome, and then for parents, and I can speak to this too, is also a little bit of a check at the door of did you play sport? What was your experience with it, parent? And how and if are you inadvertently and unconsciously maybe putting that pressure on your kid to fulfill something that you also did? So you want them to be like you or something that you didn't get to achieve. And like, since I didn't, I'm going to push them to do it. And ignore and not celebrate or value who they are beyond that because it's so important to you. Like, this is like, I'll say this is a little bit different. Like, that my daughter's in college right now. She's living her best life. I miss her deeply. It ebbs and flows. Sometimes I cry at night. That's real. But like,
Yeah.
that's my problem. That's my problem to deal with. I'm not going to change anything about what she's doing. I have to figure out how to manage my own feelings about missing her. And so that is the same thing. If we find that there's a tender spot or a vulnerable spot in our own selves about how we are parenting our human being who happens to play sport, like making sure we're staying on our side of the fence about what we need. And I'll use one of my mentors said this, our kids are as mentally strong as we are, as
Mhm.
parents, as guardians, as coaches. Our players are as mentally strong as we are. And so keeping that in mind, I think is like super important. I wanna shift to NYSOA, the National
Oh, yeah. No, for sure,
Soccer
but I just
Officials
yeah,
Association.
but, like, you just, like, you hit so many nuggets there. I just wanna make sure before we transition to
Yes, please.
it really comes back to self-reflection. right? Whether you're a coach, whether you're a parent, and being courageous enough to say, okay, what's working and what's not.
Mhm.
And doing that regularly. And it's not to say you're a bad parent or a bad coach, because we can always get better no matter how good we are.
That's right.
So I think being courageous enough to regularly step into that self-reflection mode. And then if, you do feel like you need support, even if it's not a crisis, getting on that preventative side,
Yes.
ask for help.
Yes.
And there's so many resources out there, and we are full of recommendations and referrals for you if
Yes,
you
we are.
can support.
And like,
But yeah.
even if we say consultation, because I think sometimes it can say like, oh, if I get support, does that mean something's wrong, or I'm weak, or I'm injured in some way, or less than? And that's something we have to keep challenging, that myth that you're saying, that sort of a historic way of looking at it. That's old now. We got to
It's
grow
old
in it.
school.
It's old
Yeah,
school.
yeah,
But if we need to change our language just a tiny bit to open up the opportunity for someone to step into it, say like, just get a consultation.
yeah.
We get a consultation when we call our doctors. Hey, I want an opinion. I want a second opinion. I want to have a talk about this. Why wouldn't we do that when it comes to our mental health, our psychological health, our mental strength? Why wouldn't we just say like, just quick consult and then see what happens from there? Because recommendations will be made, and that's on you about how and if you want to approach it. So I think if we need
Well,
to shift the language, what do you think about something like that?
I love it, and it's the same in the fitness space, the strength and conditioning
Mm.
space. Like, we're not waiting for stuff to hurt. We're not waiting to get injured. We're doing training so that we're more resilient. Why can't we do that with our minds as well?
That's
So,
right. I love it.
absolutely.
I love
But
it.
yeah,
Thanks for your commentary. Now back to NYSOA.
now back to NYSOA. Let's go.
NYSOA, the National Intercollegiate Soccer Officials Association. AthMindset is their mental strength partner. We just had, what is it now? We're in November of 2025 as we record this. I attended their AGM, their annual general meeting that happens with a lot of organizations, and just left there more inspired and more proud to be their partner in the way that they support referees. You have been a crucial part of the way that AthMindset is supporting them. I can't thank you enough. Your expertise, your content creation, your mind, and helping these referees shift their mindset if needed or strengthen it. As we have learned in this partnership, referees face such unique pressures, often very different, but also very similar from players or coaches. Can you share what work has looked like for you and us as we have partnered since June of this year, and what you've learned from supporting officials at that level? Because they're across, they're collegiate, they're national level, they're professional, they're international. So what have you learned in this important work and ways that you've contributed to this along the way in these last 6 months or so?
This has been such a cool opportunity, because in what fields do you go to work every day and have people scream at you and yell at you?
Right.
What a unique situation to be in. So I think even more opportunity to provide mental strength support. And so that's why I just believe this has been such an impactful project that we've worked on together. And what I've learned is that officials are high performing athletes.
Yes.
And not just because they run a whole lot, and that's, like, not
As
even
they
what
are.
that's, like, not even what I'm talking about. They
Mhm.
certainly have to pass a fitness test, but
That's
if we're
right.
thinking about their travel, the sporadic schedule, the input from players in the crowd, they are on high alert and high stress mode constantly.
That's right.
I can't think of anyone other than, first responders who are in that level of stress in their profession. Even
Mhm.
more so to get on the preventative side of things, to help them create those healthy habits and routines, to create this normalcy around asking for help and developing your social support, your identity outside being a ref, all of it so that they don't crash.
That's right. That's right. Wow, like, yeah, first responders. Because what I've learned from the language of officials, dissent. They deal with dissent a lot from coaches, players, fans, and sometimes they have a couple partners in crime, like they have their trio or the fourth official also to be able to debrief with, like connect with, communicate in action on the pitch. There's so many things that they have to do, and also stay focused and composed to make the call, and to not beat themselves up if it's quote unquote real or perceived wrong. Like, because they get stuff in social media too, just like the athletes. They get like all this feedback that is like they have to be escorted off the field. They have to be escorted to their cars, some of them at different levels. So just they have said what value you bring as a practitioner to this partnership. I can't appreciate you enough. And like we are doing something really good here and something really needed.
Yeah, and I hope that it continues for sure. And I think that there's such an opportunity, I don't know when this can be, but to shift the culture in, like, particularly with fans, or there's this normalcy that it's okay and cool to hate on the refs. And I just don't think that's really bringing the sport forward. I think that we need to come to a place of supporting everyone in the ecosystem so that the players and the sport can continue to thrive.
That's right. Because I remember you and I had the fun evening with our families going to a Roots game as spectators, as fans.
So fun.
And us being able to watch the game together with a special eye and piece of our hearts on the officials in those games. And even the people around us, kids, they will, if their parent is yelling at the refs, the kid will too. And they're cursing, their 9-year-olds cursing at the refs, this and that. I'm just like, what? Leave them alone. Leave them alone.
And honestly, Lisa, I'm no better. I've gone to soccer games where I'm like, boo, But what I'm saying is, like, opportunity for all of us to do better and to
That's
reflect,
right.
you know?
Right.
So, but yeah, like, kids are watching. What are you modeling?
That's right. It's normalized. It's normalized to yell at them. And so changing that whole culture and approach and their whole people too, doing the best they can out there. This has been a pleasure. We could have talked for probably 3 more hours. I so appreciate your expertise, your knowledge, your approach, your vibe, how you go about your business. And, I can't wait to continue to grow AthMindset alongside you and all the things that you do. And just so happy that you could join me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a delight to connect with you. I appreciate you so much and everything you bring to the space.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you so much.
This podcast exists because of the team at CAS-CM. CAS-CM is a B2B content production company helping organizations create and share their stories. We aim to create space where businesses can build assets and drive revenue through writing and talking. Content creation should be enjoyable and accessible. At CAS-CM, we love helping make that happen. Learn more at cascm.com.